right, welcome. We are doing our Take Your Health Back Now podcast. It's been a minute, so we're getting kind of restarted for this year. 2026 is already into February.
I know, I can't believe it.
I know, it's crazy.
Groundhog Day.
Yes. So we've done an interview podcast this year. This is our first kind of jumping back into the Take Your Health Back Now and giving you guys, just that little bit of health information. That's what we do. We are the founders of the Take Your Health Back Now system. We have the Preventative Health Practitioner certification course. So our mission is really to get this foundational health preventative lifestyle information out there to everybody. And on the podcast, we kind of share, current topics a little more laid back than our programming, which is very strict and specific. This is more of a conversation.
Conversation.
So thank you for joining us, and hopefully you can subscribe and you'll be with us throughout this 2026.
Yes.
All
And
right.
we will definitely start putting these out consistently.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say our goal is going to be two a month for our podcast. So if you're looking for us, you should see every other week a new one pop up. We are going to do our interviews that we love, and then just current topics and informational, whatever we're feeling like in the moment. Today, we're going to do the 3 Ps. This is kind of a good overview of our system, how we think you should live to reverse chronic issues and prevent dysfunction from coming in the future.
Right. And they're really, if as we're going through this, it's the 3 Ps, it's living by the precautionary principle, taking a proactive approach to your health is what we're talking about. And then not prevention, but protection. And all of that equals prevention. But, you can also take the same philosophy and use it in any area of your life, especially right now with all the crazy stuff happening around us. It's a good way to stay grounded and stay in control of what's going on in your own life.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times when the world gets overwhelming,
Right.
we want to kind of just like hibernate or nest or, ignore all those things. And you get a little stuck or frozen. And you have to remember that taking these steps to make positive change and impact in your own environment is the only way that you can make bigger change. And it's the best way to feel in control. Doing those things for yourself, is going to help you get out of that.
Right. Because remember, if you're in that Jenny just described, it's paralyzing. You don't move forward. You don't have change. It's that fear, stress, low frequency that we talk about a lot. And this allows you to feel like you're in control of something, and it immediately raises up that frequency. You can actually make change in your life, and you don't get caught up. If you ever listen to us, we talk about staying in the eye of the storm, like the eye of the hurricane, where it's still, as opposed to being out in the the wind and the or riding the wave rather than being pulled under the undertow. So that's the difference. And it really is also our whole philosophy on taking a holistic root cause approach to health and healing or anything in your life. It's just a different way to think about it, but it's something we teach in our PHP training certification when we work with clients. But so we'll just kind of jump into this. I think it's really important too, because there's so much. I was just telling Jenny, as we stepped into 2026, the natural health space has completely shifted and just like catapulted in a different direction.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not a good direction to take. So we'll kind of touch on that, and we'll do a different podcast on that, more deep dive into it. But all of this relates. So, and think about too that you create your own reality. That's what this is. So if you're in control of what you're doing, whether it's your health or anything else, you create your reality. So kind of keep that in mind. So I'll just reiterate the 3 P's are living by the precautionary principle. Number 2 is a proactive approach to your health, and then protection, and all of that equals prevention. So, what is the precautionary principle?
Hmm.
We've talked about this before, and interestingly enough, so we this was our philosophy like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
right? 20 plus years ago when we started. But the definition, if you look it up, of precautionary principle then and now has changed. They've
Oh.
rewritten it, is telling. But really, what the precautionary principle is that assuming something is maybe not the best for you until it's proven otherwise. It's like
Right.
the opposite. Usually it's, yeah, that's all good until all of a sudden they're like, actually, that causes cancer. We're going to pull it off the market.
Right. It's
You
kind of
know,
like in court where you're innocent until proven guilty. We're saying live your life opposite.
right,
Assume that everything is guilty until it's proven innocent, not in crime, but
right. And if
in
you think, oh, go ahead.
what you're using in your life, your products, your processes. We're really on the alliteration with the P's today. Anything that you have choice over, you need to kind of look into and be mindful of. And I think that most people just kind of let things slide or are
Mhm.
not super mindful of everything that they have control over. And a lot of people assume that because you're able to buy something at the store, that it has been proven safe by someone else, which
Right,
is not true. The capitalism of our country says, oh, you have a product and I mean, it hasn't killed anyone yet. Sure, sell it.
right. You did it.
Um,
You did a test on one mouse. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And then they'll be like, well, then, if it's on the shelf, it should be safe. And you're like, you can go buy cigarettes. I'm pretty sure everyone knows those cause cancer.
Right. Yeah. And that's the, if you think about, there's so many things that, I mean, cigarettes back in what, 50s, 60s, they were touted as a healthy alternative
Right.
until all of a sudden, no, actually they cause cancer.
And they had to fight to prove that. And you know what it
Right.
did? It put a label on a box. That's all. That's all
Right.
it did.
Right. And so many people choose, they don't care.
Right.
They don't care. They know they don't care. But this is about caring and assuming maybe something could be bad. They used to spray DDT. They used to spray that on kids, like to sanitize them.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Was that like in the 40s or something? I mean, a long time ago. There were commercials, ads like that would come out in
Mhm.
magazines about spraying it. And yay, it's great. Or, what else? There's been so many things. Accutane, that
Oh, yeah.
acne medicine that everybody was taking, and then all of a sudden found out that it was so bad for your health. They pulled it
Yeah.
off the shelves. And when we were working in the clinic, we would have people come in that they knew that their symptoms came from taking that, and it had
Right.
just
Like they could
spiraled
definitely tie it back. Yeah.
right into just autoimmune conditions and all kinds of things. But people tend to live on, oh, it's the newest and latest greatest, so I'm going to use it. And then if it then happens to find out 20, 30 years later that, oh, actually it was bad, but you want to always use your discretion
Right.
in the beginning, which is a
Yes.
big issue now. Sorry, interrupter. um
Yeah, so you want to really be mindful of things. Try to use as much like natural, as in like, not processed, not created by a factory. So you know
right,
what it is. Know about the supply line and the manufacturing process. And it takes a little bit of work to get into that habit or get that basic knowledge so that you're able to make those decisions. But it really is a huge, huge piece of just preventing dysfunction. You don't want to be part of that class action lawsuit. 30 years down the road.
Right.
And those wouldn't be so common. There wouldn't be, every fifth commercial on the radio or TV is, did you take da 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 da? And now you have this
Right.
problem. Like those, that it's a whole like viable business model for these lawyers. We wouldn't have those if everything that was available was safe and healthy.
Or people just didn't choose. And remember, it seems so simple. Like everything we talk about seems so simple that people are like, it doesn't seem fancy because it is simple. But
That's
literally, if
true.
you would just choose your choices, it's amazing the impact that your choices make. So if you just choose not to use those things, you don't even have to wait for them to say, oh yeah, this is bad. You're just choosing. If
Right.
everybody chose not to use it, they would go out of business and make something else. But there's so many things right now that are coming out that we can just assume probably not a good idea.
Right.
And you could exercise precautionary principles. So we've got the insect protein. We've got the same insect factories that are making protein that goes into, pet food, livestock food that comes back to us, that goes as fertilizer. You've got
Mhm.
cloned meat that's in our supply chain. You've got GMOs, you've got synthetic biology, you've got all these therapeutics that we're going to talk about. There's so much of this weird stuff going on, not to mention, let's just talk about the COVID jab that nobody can mention. Okay, here's the thing. If you can't mention something on your social media or even in our YouTube,
Yeah.
videos, because you might be taken down, precautionary principle would lead you to think maybe
Right.
that's not such a good thing. Or why would that be? So
Right.
we still, this has been 6 years into this, we still can't mention this, or we have the chance of being squashed, which is crazy. Or, if you think about how many people have died now, how many people have been injured, and, that's just one example, but there's so many different Ozempic, all of these GLP-1s that people are on. So many people are coming forward and saying they're having all these health issues. Their GI tract is paralyzed. They're, all of these issues. Well, precautionary principle would, if you're taking something that actually does cause you to not, be able to assimilate your food, everything else that goes along with it, maybe that could be a bad thing for you. I mean, that's what
Right.
precautionary principle is.
And when something seems like a really uh too good to be true, like
Right.
it's a quick fix pill or shot,
Right.
it probably is. And I think that the problem is like the things that we're talking about are simple, but it doesn't mean they're easy. These are simple concepts, but you have to put in the work, and it can be in our standard American lifestyle more work. It is more work to do that. Sometimes it's more money. Sometimes it's, you know, you're not as social. Those kind of things, you're going to come with pros and cons for anything, but the pros of living this way greatly outweigh the cons. And if something is super simple and easy, then you need to question it, especially if it's brand new. You know, those things like the GLP-1s, they weren't created for weight loss. They were created because of disease and trying to help people with disease that didn't want to make lifestyle change,
Right.
helping them. And then it has this kind of um, off market side effect that it became popular for. And now it's that quick fix for that. And if you're looking for a quick fix, you're going to have a lot of negative side effects. You just are.
And always, we talk about this all the time, but if you've not listened to us before, otherwise we're just driving the point home. But it is, you can't have the convenience, you can't have the easy way out, but you also always have to, you have to address and change what caused that problem in
Right.
the first place. So for all these people that can't lose weight, It's because they're not addressing what caused them to gain the weight and then hold on to that weight in the first
Right.
place. And so none of these quick fixes, whatever they are, will ever allow you to actually be healthy because you've not addressed that very, very deep underlying cause. And you
Right.
can't. You have to choose. Again, it comes back to choice. You either choose that you truly want to be healthy, and a lot of times it is the hard way, even though it seems very simple, or you choose the quick fix, easy miracle such, solution that maybe makes you look beautiful, makes you look younger, makes you feel better, makes you look skinnier, but that did not fix anything. So,
Right. And it might make you feel better in the moment, but down the road, you're going to come up with other things that are dysfunction, like, the paralysis of your GI tract. Probably you don't feel great when that happens.
and then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because we always say if you take away the interference, the body has amazing ability to heal. If you take away the interference and give it what it needs, but you can get to a point. Everyone can get to a point where you can't turn that around.
Right.
So you have now paralyzed your digestive tract. Maybe you can't turn that around. Maybe you can,
Right.
maybe you can't. So anyway, but that's kind of the precautionary principle in a nutshell. And the other thing, just focusing on what is so popular right now, are these therapeutics. It's called therapeutics. It's called regenerative medicine, longevity medicine. And I've noticed, I was just telling Jenni, a lot of the practitioners in our space are jumping on this bandwagon because it's natural, but it is not natural. Another thing that you can do if you're trying to make a choice regarding precautionary principle is always come back to what the sourcing of something is. So
Right.
with the therapeutics, everybody's talking about peptides right now because they're natural. Your body produces peptides, but peptides are made because your body's breaking down protein and then it makes peptides. Well, if you're trying to force your body to make more peptides to make you younger, where is that sourcing coming from?
Right.
So but if you look into that sourcing, and we'll go into this in another podcast because it's a whole podcast all in itself, but it's that mRNA technology,
Right.
um, that everybody in that space knows it was bad with the COVID shots, but now it's the same technology. It's editing your genes to now push your body to make these. But so that is not natural, and there is no testing on this. So what are the long-term effects? We won't know until 10, 20 years down the road, and when people start
Right.
having all kinds of problems. But you can probably imagine, if you really think about it, that there will be problems, so just
Right. It's tricky with the word natural because people use that as kind of a way to make you stop looking into it. So when we're talking about the precautionary principle and prevention and protection and all of these concepts, it's going beyond like the label. Like you can't just say, "Oh, it's natural," and then stop and then you're fine with it because there's lots of things that are natural that are very bad for you. We
right,
always use this kind of lemon juice is natural, but you wouldn't squirt it in your eye, right? That causes damage. Um, you wouldn't put salt in a wound, but it's natural. There's lots of things that if you stop to think about it, you realize that just because it's natural doesn't mean it's healthy. And now, just because it's labeled natural doesn't mean it is part of your innate biological process.
right. A natural way to make peptides as you age. That's the whole thing. It's about
Yeah.
aging agelessly and beauty and building muscle and that type of thing. Well, what you would do is build your body at a cellular level really naturally by getting healthy, by addressing the root cause. And that kind of goes into the proactive approach, which is number 2 on our list. But that's how you start producing more. Or if you're producing less, it's because your body is breaking down because it's overwhelmed and not healthy, But when you're using a natural something to force your body to make this is not a good thing. The other thing, if you're not using the mRNA technology with the peptides, the other route is they, this is crazy. And I shouldn't even be talking about it because it was going to be the next podcast. But I'll just say it really quickly. They have farmed animals, if you don't know, PHARMED, for just for pharmaceutical type things. And they take these animals like cows or pigs, or I think they do chickens too, and they insert human DNA into these animals to force the animal's body to make peptides that are human
Compatible.
compatible because they have now put human DNA into the animal. So
Right.
then they harvest from these farmed animals. They're called transgenic animals. The whole thing is just disgusting, really. And they harvest from these animals these peptides, and then that's what you get. Okay, so
Right.
that's natural in a sense because it did come from an animal, even though the animal was genetically modified with human DNA. Do you think that is a good option for you? I feel like
Right. And that's the problem with just going with something that is popular and labeled as natural. Oh, it's a natural source. So we didn't just come up with it in a science lab, but it came from a science lab. So that's why you have to take those extra couple steps to look into sourcing and how things are manufactured. It's kind of, if this was something that we could easily do, then why would it be like, oh, we have the technology all of a sudden to be able to do this? We would have
right.
figured that out a long time ago. But we couldn't genetically modify and gene edit animals until recently. So that's why it's
Yeah.
now
So we're
popular.
either genetically modifying like the animals, or we're
Yeah,
genetically modifying you to produce more.
yeah,
So just a code word to look for. If it says it's from a biotech lab or a biotech company,
yeah.
run far, far away. Seriously, there's nothing natural about that. And then
Okay, take nothing away from this podcast.
right,
Run
exactly,
far away from biotech or bio, and they're coming up like the word therapies, like they're using
therapy.
therapy because it's not medicine, it's not pharmaceutical, because they know that people are watching out for that, like they're trying to get away from that. So industry is smart. They make money. That's what they do. So they will change verbiage to things like this. So just be aware when verbiage starts to change, or you see like every company start to use the same, like peptides is now slapped on like every lotion at the store. When you
Yeah.
start to see that, it should make you think that something is going on that you need to look into.
Right. And that's why there's so many people in our space, in the natural practitioner space, that are jumping on board because they're just not looking deeply into it,
Right.
which is what we always do. And then another thing that you can think about, okay, we do this research. This is what we like to do. It takes a lot of time and effort and energy to constantly be looking this stuff up. So we're telling you to look for the sourcing, and that it takes a lot. It's deep dive stuff because it's not like you can just look up the company's name and find this stuff. You have to spend time looking for this. So if you don't want to do that, literally just focusing on being more, what we always teach, just focusing on the root cause of what is causing dysfunction, focus on that. And that's the proactive approach that we'll now step into. But if you do that, it's not as stressful. You don't even have to look this stuff up. You just assume it's
Right.
bad, you stay away from it, and you get your body as healthy as possible, truly naturally. And then you don't even have to, you can just watch it all and unfold.
Right. You just don't take part in that. So, we understand that it's very hard to completely remove yourself from, every market or processed item in the world.
Yeah.
But if you can be proactive in those places where you have the most control, then your body will be at a point where it's healthy enough to deal with those other things that are kind of out of your control, or, bigger than your impact can fully, kind of prevent them toxic exposure to things like, EMFs or whatever they're spraying for weather or whatever they're spraying for farming. You don't necessarily have a huge amount of control. You have some, your indoor air quality, where you live, what your day-to-day habits are will impact those, but you can't completely remove them. So if you're proactive about, the food that you're consuming, the anything else you're consuming, and then the products you have in your house, the not just cleaning products, but like your furniture, your clothing, your mattress, the quality of your water. You have control over all those things. And if you are proactively working to make sure those are toxin free and healthy, your body has the ability to detox from those other things you can't control.
Right. And it all comes down to every single consumer choice you make, everything in our environment, everything in your home environment, your office, your car, those are the places that you have control. And then, whatever's going on in those places. Also, we talk about toxins as far as environmental toxins all the time, but your lifestyle, your stress level.
Mhm.
Are you watching the news today? Because it's insane. Are you going down those rabbit holes where it's fear, 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 stress, stress, stress? All of those add to health or take away from health. And so that is where you have control. So you can stop watching that stuff. You can do all the things Jenni mentioned, all of that. But you also have to then address the dysfunction in the body. So if you're having symptoms of any kind, more than likely you have reactions to foods going on. You have toxic overload in the body. You have dysbiosis. You have leaky gut. You have all of these things that also need addressed. But ultimately, you have to address what caused those issues in the first place.
Right.
All of that is taking a proactive approach. And, another thing just to think about that's super popular right now, which blows my mind, and it can go along with precautionary principle or taking a proactive approach. Anytime you inject something into your blood, our body is every system is amazing in the body. We are not supposed to be putting anything into our bloodstream, you know,
It's a
just
pretty closed system. It's pretty hard to get into it. There's a reason.
right,
We're not saying that in an acute emergency that you should avoid all, medical intervention. That's not what we're saying. There's a time and a place for that. But these things that are just kind of by choice or just why did you get that? Oh, I don't know. Someone said I should. And they're smarter than me. But
right,
really, are they? Or are they just doing what someone else said? And are they just doing it because someone manufactured it and they said, this is great and you should sell it?
right. And there's so much of that now. So there's all the vaccines, there's all these therapeutics. Most of them are injections. Um, I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff, but you're bypassing the body's ability to, you know, separate nutrients and detox, and you're just dumping it all in where it shouldn't be. And, that's when you get autoimmune reactions to things. And I mean, it's just a big, giant mess. And so, that's just something that use your common sense and think about maybe
Right.
that's a bad idea because it is a bad idea and there's so much of it right now.
Right. And it's just becoming more, I don't know, it's easier to access. So it's getting normalized. Like all of these, oh, if you have the money, you can just go get an IV infusion of all these vitamins so that you don't have to be healthy in the normal way. You just get it infused or like go to the oxygen bar to breathe pure oxygen and then you won't have a hangover. Like there's all these weird
And now the
things.
new thing is breathing hydrogen. We
Right.
breathe hydrogen. Our air is made up of like 2% hydrogen, but people, and a lot of people, and again, our natural practitioner space, have a candula up their nose breathing hydrogen.
Right.
That's not a good idea. That is not what
No,
we
there's
naturally
a
do.
reason why our body is, the systems are built the way they are. This was not like accidental. So when you kind of go outside of those systems, like Kendra said, to inject things or to consume them in an abnormal way. Remember that breathing is also one of your major detox pathways, and you're doing weird things with that. It's not just taking supplements. Now it's going up to these levels where you're just bypassing all kinds of natural systems that probably shouldn't be bypassed.
Right. And here's another, this is back to the precautionary principle, but I just thought of it. This is a good one. So if you think about this if you don't know, maybe go look it up. The transhuman agenda.
Right.
That is a very real thing, and it's part
Mhm.
of the 2030, global reset. Okay, that's 4 years away. We're getting very close to
That's
that.
crazy.
It is. But the transhumanistic or transhuman agenda is all about, so anything that is biotech, synthetic biology, the transhuman agenda, all of that, their mission is taking life, redesigning life, and making it better. So all of this stuff that's real popular right now, that is their mission. Taking life, redesigning it, making it better.
Yeah, think
And that's
way
also,
down the road, like synthetic people, like you would think of, like, I don't know, Star Trek situation where it's like a robot, but it's a person, like they're merged together. That's kind of the end goal.
but the end goal is like real soon, like
Yes.
almost now, because it's also the Internet of Bodies, which is right now. All this stuff seems so futuristic, but it's right now. So if you're doing anything that is along the lines of that, it means you're consenting to that and buying into it. So kind of think about that too. So if that's the end goal and you don't want to be that, use the precautionary principle in all of these other matters and just kind of think, I'm going to stay away from that, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point because
Yeah.
people will be like, well, I don't know anything about that, and I'm just, buying what's out there and doing what other people are doing. So I'm not really adding to it, but you are. By not making your own choice, you're letting someone else make your choices for you. And there's still choices being made. You're still consuming, you're still living your life, you're having an impact one way or the other. And if you're letting someone else make those decisions for you, it's probably going to be an impact that's not towards health, that's not towards what most people would want. I
Right.
don't know. I feel like you have to have the knowledge and you have to be making your own decisions. And at that point, you have the power in your life to create your reality. If you're letting someone else do it for you, it's still being created.
Right. And that's really the difference between health sovereignty or health freedom and not
Yeah.
having health freedom. We talk about that a lot too. It's the same thing. But yeah, proactive approach is deciding to take control of your health and then focusing on every piece of what you have control over. And that is a huge, there's so many things you can do to really, our goal is always to empower people to stay healthy in our increasingly unhealthy world. And that's how you do it. And then the third thing is protection. So anything that is out of our control, like Jenni touched on that, like the chemtrail sprays. If you live in Illinois like we do, what they're spraying on the farm fields, your neighbors spraying glyphosate on their lawn, all of these things that are out of our
Right.
control.
Where the towers are going up and, the new cell
That's
phones and the 5G, like you really don't have a lot of control over where those are going.
right. Right. But where you do have control of that is get yourself as healthy as possible, first of all. And if your body is as healthy as possible, you are constantly detoxifying those heavy metals out of your body, you know, um, because we're 70% water, and then you have all those heavy metal buildup in your body. Well, now you're a perfect antenna for all of these EMFs. So if you get optimal health with that, you're eliminating those toxic metals, and then you can use EMF protection on your body,
Right.
or like this thing I always carry around. You see it? Oh, there. I love that. And we even take it when we go to hotels or anything,
Right.
That's just an example of EMF protection. Or having a really good air filter, maybe in multiple rooms in your house, to help with the whatever they're spraying in the skies and everything else, cleaning the air. Plants are really good at cleaning the air. Those are just a few examples of extra protection you can do on top of what you can do to make yourself healthier, um, at the underlying level. The EMFs is a big one.
Yeah.
That's one we get a lot of questions about that now, but that's really what you have to do. You have to get yourself as healthy as possible, and then wear protection. Anything else you can have in your house that you can take with you that is protective against that, because that's a big issue. And now they're talking about rolling out 6G. That's the next thing that's not that far away.
Yeah, and it's not going to decrease. Even if the technology doesn't change significantly, like I feel like we've hit a little bit of a plateau with the technology itself, and it's still going to increase in quantity. We're still adding, people, it's become so normal to have a cell phone, a smartwatch, wireless headphones or earbuds just on all the time. And that's just you. That's just one body, and then you've got everything that's in the environment, not like out in the environment, but, in your office, in your home, in your car, in your classroom. If everybody has those things, and then you have, what the computers and the routers that are sending those out and the antennas. Like it's just going to keep going. They're going to keep coming up with new products to sell to people, and these are convenience products. They really sell them in a way that makes your life better or easier or healthier.
The
uh,
latest and
yeah.
greatest.
So you have to realize you can't just say, oh, I don't know anything about electronics, so I think it's fine. Or, 20 years ago, no one had to deal with that. So why should I? Because things change, and it's ever increasing, and you have to be aware of it. And most people really underestimate the quantity of electronics in their day to day.
Right. And another thing with all of these steps, another big piece, or two things, big piece of being healthy is really having a connection to nature, because we are not separate. We talk about that a lot. We're not separate from nature. We are all a part of it. And you have to have a very deep connection with it, where you're really intentionally connecting. And when you're out, wearing these things all the time, you can't, so taking them off, lose the wearables. The wearables, not only do you have the EMFs going back and forth, it's the data collection, it's the stress you're always in because you're constantly looking at your data, all of
Yes,
these
we've
things.
talked about this a lot. There are
Right.
conversations. Go back and listen to them because there's so much that is bad about
There's
these.
so many more that are coming out so quickly. So many devices. But you have to really, like, I keep staring at my plant over here, if you're wondering what I'm doing. Looking at my plant. But I mean, but the other thing I was going to say is everything is a frequency, and people think that is woo woo, but it's not. It's been proven over and over and over again. We're all, it's physics. We are all energy. Everything is energy. And so,
Right. And if you don't believe in that at this point, when you can just pick up,
right,
you can look at your watch to get a message from someone who is in another country immediately.
right,
Like you can believe in that, but you don't understand frequency.
right. And it's all the same thing, but
Yeah.
it's like your radio. It's like your radio. You turn the dial. You used
Right.
to turn the dial. Nobody does that anymore, to get a certain station. Well, it's different frequencies. Each one is a different
Mhm.
frequency. So also your mindset and what you're putting out, whatever you're putting out and your frequency, that's also what you're attracting. So if we're surrounded by all of this EMF frequency, which is all low frequency and is not healthy at all for us, if you're raising your frequency, that actually you're not on the same
Right.
frequency. if that makes sense.
That was a lot of frequencies.
Yeah,
You get discordant. Yeah.
but it's not going to affect you. It's just an extra thing you can do to protect
Yeah.
yourself, to keep yourself healthier, where you're not driving with it, because like a radio, it has to be the same frequency,
Right.
for
Like a tuning fork, like when you're in a big crowd and all of a sudden kind of the emotion matches.
right,
It's just like that.
right. Or somebody walks into a room and you don't even, they're behind you, but you're like, you turn around because
Yeah.
they're bringing with them, maybe a very negative vibe or something. It's all frequency. And so just working on your own frequency, and your own frequency would be thinking really positive thoughts, and, happy thoughts. And you, even if you don't believe it, you are happy now, that kind of thing, joy.
Right. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to negate things that are scary or sad or negative. You just have to consciously put yourself in that positive perspective when possible. P,
Right.
P, 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 P. We are very alliterative today. So that positive perspective is like gratitude and being thankful and feeling joy. It doesn't have to just be like, oh, I'm happy all the time for no reason. Like we've talked about that before. We don't expect people to just ignore the bad and just be positive all the time for no reason. But you
Right.
can mindfully put yourself into those higher frequency feelings. You can be grateful for very small things every day. And there's
Yeah.
all kinds of studies now about people who do like gratitude journals and things like that, and how they are literally healthier than the people that are not doing it.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, even like the Dr. Emoto study on the water,
right,
or that same study's been done on plants by multiple people. If
right.
you or even electrons, they are in one state until somebody puts their focus, and not even speaking, but just their focus, and they change their state. I mean,
Right.
that's just a proven thing. So it just
Yeah.
shows how much.
Schrodinger's cat.
Right.
So, okay, now we're like into some crazy science. We've
Well,
gotten
clearly
away
this
from
is
the
what we
woo
were
woo.
talking about. But it does make a big difference with the EMFs and the frequency coming off of things. But anyway, so the 3 points, again, just to reiterate: precautionary principle. So you're just going to assume all of these new crazy things. Here's another thing, real quick. Everything is about health, beauty, aging in reverse, all the things we want, right? And that's how they market it to you. So kind of be aware of that too. But the precautionary principle is maybe avoiding these things and just putting your focus on healing the body and healing your environment you have control over, which is also then the proactive approach, taking control of your own health, taking control of your own situation, because you do have control over it. And then the protection, anything that is out of our control, anything you can do to protect yourself um, from those things. And then all of that equals prevention, which
Right.
is always our focus.
Preventative health lifestyle. You are
Right.
preventing those things through these steps. It is a lifestyle. Remember, just because it sounds simple doesn't mean it's necessarily easy. You do have to put in the work. And you can't skip steps. Like this is in life. You cannot skip steps to get this big, great outcome. You have to do the foundational work. To get good at something, you have to practice it. And if you are being offered a way to skip steps, there is something else that's going to come out of that.
Right.
Yeah, it's just how it works.
Right. Yeah, that was a good analogy. Good job.
All right, so I think that was a really good overview of our Take Your Health Back Now system, really the way we approach health, how we reverse chronic symptoms and prevent future disease. That's just what we do. If you are interested in jumping in with us, you can always reach out. We do train preventative health practitioners. They work with you one-on-one, going through this very specific steps in order to do this and get yourself onto this path. Kendra and I are stepping away from the one-on-one. We are focusing on training and certifying preventative health practitioners because we just need more people out there doing this. Like,
more than ever, because
yes,
nobody else is teaching this.
yeah,
This is not on the topic, but it's true, because you've got all of these natural practitioners pushing these therapeutics, which are just going to be, I guarantee, detrimental
yeah,
to human health. And then you've got, people focusing more on just diet and exercise. It's very few. I don't know of any other certification that is focusing on a root cause approach like we do. And this is literally the only way people can get healthy,
right,
stay healthy. You have to do this work. So we really, really, really need PHP. So that's why we are only putting our focus on
yeah.
the training and certification now. But if you feel like you want to do what we've talked about today, but maybe don't know quite where to start, or maybe you don't feel like you have the wherewithal to do this yourself, we can put you in touch with a PHP. Or if you want to actually learn this and go out and help your clients do the same thing, then that is what we do. We train and certify. So
So
reach
we
out.
have the system, we know it works. We talk about it all the time. You don't have to create this from scratch. And that's hard. We know that. Like you can live this lifestyle, you can figure it out, but it takes a long time and it's a lot of work and it can be really lonely. So having that community, having a system that's already in place, if it resonates with you, then we would love to have you in one way or another in our community.
Exactly. Definitely. Yes. And if this resonated, which it should have, because it is affecting everyone,
Right.
share or like, or all the things you're supposed to do, just to get the word out. Yeah. And I think next time we will do a more deep dive in on these crazy therapeutics and
Yeah.
really talk about that.
Yeah, that's a longer conversation, and we managed to keep it short and touch on it in this conversation. But we should dive into it more because it is, like you mentioned, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of research, and we enjoy doing that and then bringing that information to you guys so that you don't have to do it because you don't want to, or you just don't have, the tools to figure it out. So we're doing that for you. So that
Right.
will be next week. If you're watching the replay, then whatever episode is after this one should be that. All
Everybody
right.
have a good day.
Yes, I'm glad that we're jumping back in. 2026 is going to be an interesting year, I think. We'll see what.
Fire versus energy.
Yes. Fire
Okay.
with energy. All right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.